What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite directors and the deeper meaning within their films. And this episode, we're talking about possibly the most successful, the most famous Asian director besides, I would say, well, Kurosawa and Miyazaki.
Yeah, probably the most influential, but
Kurosawa and Miyazaki, I would rank it, and then Ang Lee.
Ang Lee, yeah, definitely Ang Lee is probably the
but
biggest
as far as
name
success, right now. Ang Lee has an Oscar, though.
He has an Oscar, one of the biggest foreign movies in the United States box office of all time. Yeah. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Just a plethora of films. Talk about Life of Pi and all these great, amazing, culturally representative films that he's come out with over it.
Yeah, it's definitely safe to say that he's one of the most impactful directors.
Brokeback Mountain, of course.
Brokeback Mountain. There you go. That's impactful in a different way,
right?
Right. Yeah. Right. He's definitely one of the most impactful directors we've ever covered, to be honest. And it's going to be a very interesting conversation. But before we do that, we want to get into the comment section from last week where we talked about Michael Bay. We had Makuga call in.
Makuga. That was a great episode, man.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Shout out to Josh Makuga. Go follow Josh Makuga.
Josh Makuga for Jeopardy, everybody, please. Give that some hype.
Laura H. Horsefall, who's a
great supporter of our show.
Great supporter.
Yeah.
Much love. Says RB3 not being able to not able to stop laughing trying to get through the explanation of Armageddon's premise. Says everything that needs to be said about that script. It's kind of true.
Armageddon,
it's kind of true, man.
Armageddon is an amazing motion picture, one like no other.
Yeah. Jonathan Peck says, my take on Michael Bay is he's a bit of an enigma for me. On one hand, he has two films, The Rock and Armageddon, in the Criterion collection. He's a major influence in filmmaking. His major influence in filmmaking is West Side Story. And what I describe him as a very honest with films he makes, and he's very honest with the films he makes and the actors he's working with, and even himself will admit that some of his films didn't work if you don't agree with this attitude. Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he has a little bit of an ego.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the great directors have egos to some extent. I don't know to what extent you want to call Michael Bay great, but I think
that's my thing.
When you look at somebody like a Kubrick or not Spielberg necessarily, at least not from public persona wise, but usually these guys have enormous egos. So I'm sure Michael Bay just thinks he's just the greatest as well, presents himself as such. I mean, that's what the whole thing with T.J. Miller was, right? Like T.J. Miller was like, "Hey, Michael Bay will like yell at you and just like just to get he's like what did he say? He was like a tyrant.
He said he's staring into the eyes of a madman. He's taking orders from a madman. He's like that. That's a great interview because he literally says, he's like, I realize that I'm taking orders from a madman. And I was like, ooh.
He said something like, it's like if Hitler was like trying to get the shot right or something.
Oh yeah. He did say that.
So I think
that's high praise.
Nah, but you know what?
No, I'm joking.
No, but honestly, like a lot of directors are strict. Not like, at least not from a public persona wise. You wouldn't know it, but we work on stuff with a lot of these directors. I mean, I haven't, but like, people like James Cameron, I've heard he has a very strict no phone policy on his sets. Like if you have a phone, he'll like staple it to the wall or something like that. I heard other directors, other directors are very like locked in and set on making sure the process goes as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a PA on a few film sets, and that's 100% true. Yeah, like 90% of directors are crazy on set, right? Like you said, their public persona is like, oh, they're chill, they're cool in interviews, but on set, they're insane. Right. It's literally like dictator level type of insanity that's going on set.
Right.
So it's yeah, I guess he's another one of those. I mean, even Makuga mentioned it. David O. Russell.
Oh, David O. Russell.
Oh my God,
if there's an audio recording of David O. Russell on set with one of the actresses, I can't remember the name from the Sarah Huckabee movie from I Heart Huckabee. Sarah Huckabee. What the heck? From the I Heart Huckabee.
You're watching Fox News too much, RB3.
Watching too much of this political crap. Yeah. But yeah, no. I Heart Huckleberries. There's a like behind the scenes audio of like him like yelling at like the actors is unbelievable. But yeah, no. But when you talk about what else? What the last part of that thing said? I know he was also talking about the Rock and Armageddon being part of the Criterion collection. collection. Both also true, but like,
Well, he said he admits that some of his films didn't work, and I'm like, did he ever admit that? I don't know. I don't know if he ever did. But either way, let's move on to another comment.
Yeah.
Speaking of Fox News, Alan Partridge says, for me, it's the fact that Sean Hannity is a Michael Bay fanboy speaks volumes.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. Wow.
Come on, you didn't know that? Aren't you like a Fox News guy? Come on.
Watch Fox News every day, people. Hey.
Fox and Friends in the morning, bro.
Fox and Friends. I'm with Trump tweeting in the bathroom.
That's their audience.
Stuff. Yeah.
The audience is Trump.
I don't watch Fox News.
Brian Souter says, well, it had to be done eventually, and you did it very well. Thank you for the really incredibly entertaining episode, and thank you for having Makuga as a guest.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Michael Martinez says, Josh Hartnett was in Halloween H2O. There you go.
All right, well.
Because you were trying to figure out what was he in besides Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is also in Halloween H2O.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt isn't that. Have you seen his interview with Conan when he's promoting that?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty funny. It's a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt promoting Halloween H2O on the Conan show.
Yeah.
That says it all. It's pretty funny. Because the guy looks like he's like phased out, bro. Like he's so high, and he's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's just a horror movie, man. It is what it is. And Conan's like, oh, cool. H2O, it is what it is. And he's kind of like teasing him.
That sounds awesome.
But it's a funny interview. I definitely recommend watching that. Michael Martinez also says, #Tushy Gang. Yeah, I'm glad someone caught that.
Yeah.
But I had to get off the Tushy Gang when he was in those Transformers movies, man. It's rough. It's definitely rough.
Yeah,
my favorite comment is Tari, who says, guys, I watch every single episode, but I don't like commenting on YouTube. Most people who watch don't comment on YouTube. Please don't take it so personally when there aren't comments. You see, RB3? And then he continues, and he says, on the other hand, I commented a few times asking for an anime director episode, or better yet, Mamura Hosada episode, but stopped asking. Anyways, this is still the best and most well-informed content that the entire Collider Schmoes network puts out. So he ended on a positive note. No, I'm kidding. Shout out to you, Terry. I love you, Terry.
What the end of that? What was the director he was asking for?
Mamura Hosada?
Mamoru Hosada?
Yeah.
Who's that?
You don't know who that is, RB3? Shame on you. Aren't you a film student? No, he's an anime director.
Okay. Yeah. Miyazaki?
No, because he would have been Miyazaki. Is it the same thing? No, man, it's not the same thing.
Okay.
Come on, RB3. Where your head is at, man?
You know, I just got onto this really dope anime. I think it's called Kuroko's Basketball. Have you heard of that?
Oh, my God. You're watching that?
Yo,
Come on, man.
Wait. Is that like a bad one?
No, I'm kidding. It's a well-known anime.
Yo, that shit is lit.
I can't believe you're watching anime, man.
Yeah,
I feel like a proud father right now.
I got a new roommate, everybody. So I've lived alone for over a year, 2 years, really, almost 2 years. I've lived alone for almost 2 years. Unfortunately, they moved somebody into my place, and not they. I mean, they as in the institutions, of course. So somebody else living in my place, big anime fan. So all that's on is Crunchyroll, and usually the Clearicals.
Can I ask where he's from?
It's from Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just some random white dude?
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, how do you know he's white?
Huh?
How you know he's white?
I don't know. I just assumed.
You think a black person from Texas wouldn't be watching anime? Ace?
Oh, that totally would.
That's true. A lot of black people in Texas are watching anime.
That's awesome, man.
But yeah, he's we watch. I mean, like that show is like one of the most amazing premises I've ever come across.
Yeah,
like this team of high school basketball players, or this one dude of going against all these different teams of high school basketball players from the generation of miracles. Dope show, man. Dope
now
show.
You're into sports anime. That's like an actual category.
Really?
There's a volleyball anime that's like super probably the most popular sports anime right now.
Really?
There's the
I'm not into volleyball.
I do me neither. There's the Food Wars, which is considered sports anime because it's competitive. It's competitive cooking, which is insane. It's crazy.
It's an anime about competitive cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
I'm telling you, bro. Anime is less of like. That's my thing when people, because I'm an anime guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, when people send me animes that are like super sappy, romantic, I'm a sci-fi guy. I'm a sci-fi horror anime guy. that's my type of anime. Like I love all types of anime, but I'm not really into the super drawn out romantic animes, and there's a ton of those, and people send me those, and I'm like, oh, not me. I like them in movies, but when it's a series, I don't know if I can sit down and watch all that. So yeah, you're learning very quickly that there's different types of anime, man.
Yeah, hey man, salute to anime out there.
Now you're gonna be heading to Anime Expo like I did.
I don't know about that. Maybe to rep the basketball show, but
dude, I'm legitimately so close, and Attack on Titan's killing me. By the way, I'm like desperate to get into a microphone and start yelling at it just to talk about Attack on Titan. But I'm legitimately going crazy about this season, man.
Hey,
it's so freaking good.
I only watched season 1.
Oh my gosh, come on, man.
So I gotta catch up on the rest.
It's so easy to catch up. It's so season 2 only has 12 episodes.
All right.
And they're like 15 minutes. I mean, they're 20, but they're like basically 15 minutes.
I should probably go back and rewatch the first season because I don't remember it. I watched it when the first came out. Like, yeah. So I probably should go back and like revisit that. Also, I was big on. I mean, I don't know. It's Dragon Ball Z's anime, right? Yeah. All right. I was big on that, like as a child.
Yeah, so. I like how you were so careful. Is it anime?
Death Note I watched recently too.
Oh, dope.
I'm picking up, man.
Did you finish Death Note?
I didn't. No, I didn't finish it. No.
Oh, come on.
I really just watched like 3 episodes, but like that's that's deeper into most shows that I get into. Let's see here. I definitely One Punch Man. I finished.
Really?
Yes.
I'm shocked.
And
Dragon Ball Z, Full Metal Alchemist.
Full Metal Alchemist. I have not gotten.
That's a ton of episodes. That's why I forgive you. Same with Gundam. There's like a ton of episodes, and there's also a ton of different Gundam.
But
series.
the dudes in Ready Player One, right? One of them.
For which one?
Isn't
like yeah.
On the big robot.
That I freaked out.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy
Bebop is literally only one season, like 20 episodes. That's it.
I've heard of it because I heard that's like the inspiration for Brick, right? The Rian Johnson movie, right?
I guess. I don't know. Is it?
Well, I think Chris Stuckman did like this whole review on like Rian Johnson's Brick, and he was like, "Oh, the construction of this movie is very similar to like Cowboy Bebop, like the main characters." Like,
is it?
Yeah, and I think like Rian Johnson said that was like one of his favorite movies.
Crazy.
So I gotta watch. So I definitely want to watch that because Brick is one of my favorite movies.
Now the final one, Avatar.
Of course I watched Avatar. I haven't watched Kira though. I haven't watched Legend.
You haven't watched Korra?
I haven't watched Korra.
Korra's amazing. I watched
Korra.
So good.
Yeah.
It's definitely a debated topic, but everyone who disagrees is wrong.
Hey,
it's over. End of debate. Because for me, it's incredible.
Deep into the anime discussion. Wow, we are like 20 minutes in and still no
Ang Lee is a director that first, I chose.
Yeah, and you chose because we have a very big representative Asian American film that's being released in theaters this weekend called Crazy Rich Asians,
which we saw on Friday. Rich Asians, which made a ton of money over the weekend. I actually thought it was going to make more money considering how packed the theaters were.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't even buy like
I struggled to find tickets. Like, it was crazy.
California has a very big, Asian population though, so
I think it's the biggest one besides Asia.
Yeah.
Like, as far as like all over the world, there's so many Asians in
I mean, LA was like, we literally couldn't find a seat. Like,
yeah, the Asian community is popping, man.
Yeah,
like it's a lot.
I thought it was gonna be like Black Panther numbers, like the way it was gonna, like,
right?
The way everybody was like,
but it still made a ton of money. Though.
No, it made an amazing amount of money, especially something that comes off a $30 million budget. That's based on the best, New York Times bestseller, Crazy Rich Asians.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of times when we talk about Asian film, Asian cinema, we're talking about international cinema, right? Origins from China, Japan, Taiwan, all these different places. But this is the first one that was really specifically for Asian Americans and Asian American stars, like a romance comedy in that fashion. So. Very important landmark in our history.
Yeah, apparently it's the first all Asian cast in like 25 years or something like that.
I could Joy Luck Club was probably the last one, which I read as a book in high school. Which we're gonna talk about another movie, which is based on a book that I read in high school. But yeah, no, that's definitely I think that's the biggest part of it, right? Is that for the first time in a long time, we haven't seen that kind of representation of Asian Americans, and particularly, you know, Asian women too, outside of movies that are, you know, action movies or Jackie Chan movies or something like that, or set in China.
Or
know?
actual like foreign language.
Or
foreign
actual
movies.
foreign language movies. Yeah. So this is the first American kind of produced American. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's very rooted in Asian American culture, even though it's set mostly in Singapore.
Yeah, and it's run by, directed by John Chu.
John Chu, USC graduate, fight on.
There you go, USC grad.
Yeah.
So it's American director.
Yeah.
American Asian director. So yeah, it's incredibly significant, and that's kind of why I decided to let's tackle probably, like I said before, one of the most famous Asian directors, successful,
Right.
like of all time, right? Because
Yeah.
Ang Lee is crazy. Like a lot of people look up to Ang Lee because of what he's able to do with Asian cinema and making that into Hollywood. Because that's what Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was. Like it was a phenomenon. Because I don't know if you remember RB3, because you probably weren't even born. But I remember. And I remember that it was crazy. Like everyone was like, "Oh, Crouching Tiger, you got to see this movie. It's crazy." And I'm like, "Wow, this is crazy how this movie just impacted so much. Like it reached a lot of people." And it was based on Ang Lee. And the fact that he's able to take so many different cultures and different movies, that to me is like the biggest telling factor of why he's such a great director as well, is because he also did Life of Pi, which is all about Indian culture, and you feel the culture throughout that whole movie. And then you have something like taking Woodstock, which is all like the
Musical
hippie culture,
yeah.
musical culture.
Yeah.
Then you have what's the freaking British one that
Sense and Sensibility.
Sense and Sensibility, which
Yeah.
is like super freaking British. It's
Well,
British as hell.
It's also about femininity too, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's also a consistent through line that's through a lot of his movies, are the relationship between women and how women like it. I think that's what elevates one of the things that elevates Ang Lee as a director is that he really does give a lot of his women characters a lot more perspective than I think most male directors or most directors period would put out there. So it's just interesting that he always provides those little nuggets, especially in something like sensibility, especially in something like and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and a number of his other films. So
Yeah.
I think that's a very big part of it.
And I think that comes from his culture too, because he's a Taiwanese director.
Right.
And I feel like that is also, I mean, you saw it in Crazy Rich Asians. Like the Asian culture is known for being very family traditional values that they
Right.
hold very dear.
Right.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't know, surprisingly. That's also something that's in the Latin community quite a bit, that people don't really talk about. And it's very powerful and it's very impactful because it takes the cultural norms of Asia, basically,
Right.
to generalize, and it kind of turns it on its head, especially with LGBT representation, which is not...
And Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah,
right?
but I'm saying it's not a big thing
Right,
in
right.
Asia. It's as far as being accepted,
Yeah.
and as far as, like you said, women, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a culture that throughout the years has history of like being very like you stay in your position, stay in your place kind of thing.
Well, most of his movies are period pieces to a
Mm-hmm.
certain extent. I mean, Crouching Tiger is definitely one. Sensibility is also 18th century, or is it 17th century? 18th? I don't know exactly what kind of decade that is. But anyway, past.
So
all of them are. Most of them are
The
period
Ice Storm
pieces.
is set in the 1970s.
1970s, Woodstock,
Yeah.
also 70s. The Billy Lynn one set in 2012
Oh, that's probably
or something.
one of the current ones.
Yeah, I mean, it was still technically a period piece.
When is Life of Pi set?
I
Is
don't
that current
know.
times?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
But that's a good call. And that's actually my first question to you, RB3, because I have questions lined up for you, is what is the underlying factor that makes it an Ang Lee movie? What is the
Right.
quality that we see throughout all his movies?
Well, I think for Ang Lee, as what makes him such a powerful director is his ability to really dive into a particular type of theme. A lot of times those themes are family or tradition or things of that nature, but how he uses all of the elements surrounding that around surrounding the story and incorporates that into the overarching theme, right? Like when we're going to talk about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon later, but a whole theme of that is movement, right? Tradition, right? And that's represented through the wind, through the breezing trees, through the elaborate like movements that everybody's making, through the costume design that's very much fluid and represents fluidity, and that movie's very much about energy, about nature. And I think those are all very prominent and ties back into the themes of tradition versus trying to break the tradition and trying to move forward in one's own life. And what does life leading to death or tragedy, or does it lead to a life after death? Like, these are all questions that we meditate on. I think that's what's consistent about his movies. They're all about life and the purpose of life, the meaning of life, and what do we have to serve like afterlife to a certain extent. And I think that's one of the biggest thematic through lines from a form standpoint, from a director style standpoint. Is definitely elegance, is definitely a lot of the smooth camera movements. He does a very great job at enabling a genre and trying to heighten a certain genre, to represent where it's originated from, but kind of elevate it and deconstruct it to a certain way. I think Crouching Tiger is a great example of a movie that's fundamentally a pretty basic martial arts movie, but is elevated by the perspective that it owns. Whereas I think Hulk is a horrible example of that whole thing going wrong, because it's trying to be a comic book movie. It's trying to represent the comic book form in the sense of cinema, but that's not really something that can translate very well. So I think overall, I think that's what defines Ang Lee to me as a director.
Yeah, and you said it too, and I was going to touch upon it too, that the fact that although he's kind of jumping outside the box of cultural norms, he still seems very respectful of those norms, at least when it comes to representation of it, right? Because we see that all throughout Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, right? We see the meanings behind what is going on as far as why people believe what they believe, but at the same time, it's being able to not necessarily reject your culture, because I feel like that's not the case with Ang Lee, but at the same time, evolve with your culture. Let your culture evolve. You don't have to bury and take away traditions, but at the same time, you don't have to keep the same mentality as far as viewing different people, whether that be women or whether that be, minorities, or whether that be anything else. I feel like he has the ability to say a message of cultural evolution and towards a direction of positivity, and not necessarily towards a direction of just throw everything to the wind and who cares, right? Yeah. I don't know if you agree with that, but that right. To me feels like something he's always saying throughout his films, right? Yeah. And it's similar. I mean, funny enough, we mentioned the film, but that's kind of what Crazy Rich Asians is saying, right? Because it's still like Constance Wu's character, who I love, Constance Wu, is kind of like the example of that, right? It's keeping the traditions of her Asian culture, but at the same time, she's an American, right? I mean, she does what she needs to do, and she's a powerful woman, and she stands on her own. She doesn't need to submit to the perceived notions that a woman would get during that culture, whatever that may be, right? Right. And that's why she has a relationship with her mom, and she starts to realize that, oh, this is different. Like, this is something that I didn't have to go through, and I don't want to go through, because my mom went through it, and I'm good. But I'll still keep the Asian culture, and I'll still keep the language and the people and the food and everything that makes a part of her, and she keeps that throughout her life, basically, and throughout the movie, obviously. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Dang, RB3.
I mean,
either I just said some dope shit.
No, you did say some dope shit.
Or I just went over your head.
No. You said some dope shit. I'm speechless, man. I'm speechless.
All right, man. I can tell you lying, RB3, but
I am.
Why you always lying? No, I'm fine. I still love that meme, by the way. That's never gonna get old.
Why the fuck you lying?
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, R.I.P. Vine. But yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, Crazy Rich Asians, definitely a good representation, and I think that's something that we see in a lot of movies that are told from like young people's perspective. Young people of color perspective, right? Like that's something that was similar in Black Panther too. Like,
Sure.
the whole idea of Black Panther is tradition versus like technology, and what's the balance between those two. So I feel like that's something that a lot of marginalized groups have to deal with.
Yeah. His first 3 films, Pushing Hands, The Wedding Banquet, and Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, are...
Romance comedies.
What's that?
Are they romance comedies?
No, they're all centrally around family.
Oh, okay.
And they all have a central father figure. And I think they call it like the Father Trilogy too.
Okay.
Someone will probably correct me on that. But it's interesting because I feel like that's an indication throughout his other movies. One of these, I believe is it Pushing Hands or The Wedding Banquet?
Yeah, I didn't check these ones out, unfortunately.
Is about a father accepting... it's not this one. It's probably this one. It's about a father accepting The Wedding Banquet. It's about the father accepting his son who just came out.
Oh,
and it's an Asian father, and it's an Asian cast. So that is very interesting because it's a different perspective from the setting of Brokeback Mountain, because the Brokeback Mountain is like Wyoming and Texas during the 1960s and 70s, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's like their perception of what society views as LGBT. I don't know what to define it, how it was defined back then, but how they viewed that. And this film is basically how a very traditional Asian father views it, right? So again, we see themes come up throughout the rest of his movies, because this theme of fatherhood is even in the Hulk movie. It's throughout... what's the other movie that it's about?
I think Life of Pi has...
Life of Pi. That's another great example of
yeah.
Even freaking Brokeback Mountain, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like... what's his name? Not Jake Gyllenhaal.
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger's character is dealing with what this new realization of himself
does to him as a family man.
Does to him as a father to I think two daughters. Throughout the whole movie, I don't know if you caught that, or if you felt that, but to me, that's kind of what I felt from the movie, is the fact that he's like, crap, I don't know what to do, because I love who I love, but at the same time, I got daughters, man. Like I still love my daughters, and I want to be around for them, and I don't want to necessarily take his divorce from his wife as an example to just not be around his daughters at all.
Right. Same thing in Sensibility too, right? That's very much a traditional type of movie that is also about, the about the father, the patriarchy, right? Like how the patriarchy affects the lives of these young people. So
before we move on to probably Sense and Sensibility, let's talk about a segment that I almost forgot. What's your first encounter with Mr. Ang Lee? Your first time?
First time. Okay, first time. First time. That's interesting. I might say my first actual experience knowing that it was an Ang Lee movie. I mean, again, like, these are movies that I don't know if I saw Crouching Tiger before and just like didn't realize it, but consciously.
Because you were like 2.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, or I probably didn't see it in theaters, but like on TV or some shit. Yeah. But like, definitely for me, it was Life of Pi. That was like the first time I saw like a true like Ang Lee movie. You know what I mean? And then like going back and seeing the rest of his filmography after.
Came out in 2012.
Yeah,
when RB3 was like 8.
Saw in theaters. I saw in theaters. No, I was an 8. I was a sophomore in high school.
Dang it, man! Every time. Mine was definitely Hulk.
Hulk. Oh wow.
Yeah, okay. I saw that in theaters too.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, it was probably Hulk. Probably. Yeah. Well, because I don't think
came out in 2003.
2003. I definitely didn't see it in theaters, but saw it on TV, and I remember having those little Hulk, like gloves or whatever, like as a child.
Those Hulk gloves, man, they were everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, that was what made like Hulk like dope to me. It was just the gloves. You know what I mean? Like, I thought that was his power. I just thought his hands got big. I didn't know it was his whole body.
Oh, RB3. You break my heart, man. But yeah, the Hulk, I definitely have a lot to say about that film, because obviously I'm the comic book guy, and adore comic book movies, and that came out in 2003, which was also the same year that Daredevil came out. It's also the same year that Underworld came out, which is like the film that inspired me. RB3.
Wow.
We've talked about Underworld before.
Yeah, 2003 was a big year.
2003 was a big year for me because Daredevil was my shit.
Really?
It was my shit.
With the Jon Favreau.
I swear, I had a dream as a kid of just like watching that movie. I had a dream that I was watching that movie, and I went up to my mom and I'm like, "Mom, I have to see this movie." And it's crazy because if you watch old trailers, I don't know if it's still up, but this movie was PG-13 with like an asterisk. Like it said PG-13, and then the narrator was like PG-13, but some stuff may be very inappropriate for blah 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 blah, and it just said that. And every time that caught me off guard, I was like, "What did they mean?" And I found out eventually when I saw the movie,
right,
what they meant.
Right.
But Daredevil, man, Daredevil was
That's a dope movie.
Was my like life.
Actually, I don't know if it's a. I mean, do you think it's still a dope movie? I don't know if it's like good, like after the like now.
Let me just say this, RB3. If you have a montage with Evanescence playing in the background as you're kicking and punching and putting on a Daredevil suit,
yeah.
How is that not a good movie, man?
That's interesting. That's nice. They should have that in a new Netflix.
Evanescence, man. That's my childhood too, bro.
Yeah.
Freaking
Evanescence on the soundtrack to the Netflix show. Maybe Netflix Daredevil.
Oh, I was gonna say, is it? That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Marvel Netflix because
I'm not watching RB3
is.
anymore.
You told me you were hyped for Iron Fist though.
What? Nah, man. I'm sorry.
RB3 was like, "Yo, Iron Fist. I'm watching that first day it comes out.
Hell no.
Binging the whole thing."
I'm good. I'm never watching another Marvel show on Netflix again, man.
I'm
done.
Let's move on to Sense and Sensibility.
Sense and Sensibility. Okay,
Tell me about this movie.
Yeah, I just picked up the Wikipedia page. So what the Wikipedia page is telling me is that Mr. Dashwood dies, leaving his second wife and her 3 daughters poor by the rules of inheritance. The 2 eldest daughters are the titular opposites. So, what I remember from reading this book and watching this movie, mainly just watching the movie because I didn't really like read the book like in high school. I'm sorry, people. I didn't really read the book in high school.
You got an assignment to read a book in high school and you didn't read it?
Man.
That never happens, RB3. Everyone reads the books in high school they're assigned to read.
Yeah, nah, I'm sorry. But no, Emma Thompson is actually the writer of this movie, and she stars in this movie, and she ended up winning, if not, I think she was nominated, if not won, the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay for this movie.
This is a Jane Austen
Austen adaptation. So, again, Jane Austen is an author who's very much about women oppression, right? Women being under the foot of the patriarchy, being put under the foot of, hey, the money has to run directly through, under the father, and what is left under the patriarchy once the main patriarch is departed, what comes at odds in that situation. So I think that's very much a theme that Ang Lee tackles head on in this movie very, very well. But it's also kind of the duality of what can come out of parentage too, right? You have the one side who's like the more, who's the more like logically based, like sister who wants to be more, who thinks more of like, oh, like less, like she has more of an ambition, like it kind of at least perceived in her goes, whereas somebody who's like the Emma Thompson character, who's the more sensible one, who's more kind and more courteous, has different ambitions. So it's just interesting that those two worlds have to collide in the same way that tradition has to collide with the future in the same kind of way. So
yeah, I mean, it's very of its time, right? The idea of having a son to inherit what you built, right? I mean, obviously, I'm obsessed with the show Succession.
Succession, that's right.
Which I've highly recommended to everyone, and I've highly recommended to you personally.
You did, yeah.
And
I love the theme song for that show too.
That theme song, doesn't it sound like the freaking Gangster's Paradise, Coolio? Am I the only one who thinks that when I watch it? Because when I'm watching it, I'm like, this sounds like Gangster's Paradise because of the violins, the dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Obviously, it adds the piano, but anyways, And it's all about kind of like inheritance and who gets what and
Right.
what son gets what. Is it first son, second son, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, my favorite show probably of all time, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is all about that too, obviously because it's fake medieval, right? Because it's fiction. Medieval times of like during that time, fathers were desperate to have sons because they need to pass. It's the heir. It's the heir to you building everything you built. And what did you build it for? Like that's what Tywin Lannister is obsessed with, because he wants to have a family that shows excellence for years and years and generations to come. Now, what happens when a culture, such as in this movie, doesn't accept that or views women as someone to pursue a man who has money versus actually have money herself? So that's very interesting, and it's very, it's very much of its time with this movie. And obviously, like we said before, it's a period piece. Now the cast, though, man, the cast is freaking Hugh Grant, Kate Winslet, Harriet Walker, Tom Wilkinson, James Fleet. Like this thing is crazy.
And Kate Winslet is actually more of the like romantic type. She's more of the one who's like I guess I mischaracterized it before, but she's the more of the sensible one. She's the more of the hopeless romantic who believes in love, whereas Emma Thompson's a little more bitter towards the world and stuff like that. But it's just interesting that's that kind of dynamic between these two and how they express themselves through just through their relationship as sisters.
I was just about to ask you, RB3, what are the differences between the book and the movie, but I remembered that you disobeyed your teacher and did it.
Oh my God, I disobeyed my.
You're like, man, I didn't come here for this.
Yeah, I didn't come.
I didn't even get berated, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Now I'm in college and I have to read everything. Right, RB3?
Well, hey man, Leonard Mullen follows me on Twitter, so I can't be saying anything like.
Dang, man. I'm still jealous, man. I'm still jealous about that.
I'm not, bro. I'm like falling back on Twitter completely, dog. Like,
what?
I'm falling back.
I live for the RB3 hot takes, man.
I'm not putting.
Give me that RB3 hot takes.
Nah, man, they happen on Twitter no more. No.
Come
I've learned my
on,
lesson,
man.
people.
Why?
I've learned my lesson.
Just because you lose some followers? I lost followers. Come on. I lose followers all the time, man.
I ain't trying to get yelled at like by no critics saying I'm invalidating their jobs and stuff like that. So like. I'm just gonna lay back for a little bit.
I just want to see like 10 years from now, you're like the director of a new movie, and it's like, oh, let's go back on RB3's Twitter account.
Yeah.
Go all the way back.
Well, my biggest fear is people are gonna like skim through like the 200 hours of this podcast and like try to find some bullshit on me. So you know what I mean? Like,
man, if that happens, that's gonna be. I think it's gonna be worse for me. I think it's way worse for me, dude. I feel like I shit on everyone, and I don't mean to. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, man, it's good. It's good to be honest, though. Man.
Yeah,
it's good we're transparent.
I feel like we're in a position where honesty and transparency is first come. Like that's the first thing you should worry about. And I also feel that being in a position of podcasting, a world that very few people know about, like the real world don't care about podcasting. So if we ever have a guest on or something, like I've seen other channels, like I listen to other podcasts and I'm like, didn't you trash this guy's movie? And he's like, hey man, how's your movie? And they just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that, but I just love it when people, other podcasts talk about other directors or other films, and then they have the guests on promoting the movie that they don't care about or that they criticize in their review. I listen to The Ringer a lot. I don't know if you listen to The Ringer.
I've heard of it. I've never heard
and it's just they have guests all the time of like really well-known, not good movies.
Really?
Yeah. Like I think they had the director of Truth or Dare on there. And I'm like, guys...
Who directed that?
I don't know, but they were like, you guys did not give this movie a great review, and you're like, whoa, how is it with Blumhouse? And they're kind of changing the conversation about making it about Blumhouse.
That's interesting.
But that's my thing. My thing is like, I don't think they care, and they're like, whatever. Yeah. So we're still gonna get jobs, RB3.
Hopefully somebody doesn't. But yeah, Twitter, I'm laying back. This is so weird, but I just you said it before. You had mentioned Game of Thrones. And I know I'm still on the Westworld kick. I got an idea for a Westworld Game of Thrones crossover idea, right?
All right, tell me.
What if you know how like they've been? I'm only on episode 8 of like season 2 so far, so like bear me if I'm like not knowing exactly what happens next. But like you know how they went to like the the world with like the samurai world or
Yep.
whatever. I like to call it the East World since it's West World. I don't know why they just didn't call it East World, but that's
It's called
my
Shogun World.
Shogun World. I
Yeah.
still think East World is a better name. East World, East, whatever. You know how they went there? Like, I think, what if they went to another like world that was like, and you find out like the creator, like Ford, was so obsessed with Game of Thrones, he created a whole world of it. And you walk into it, and it's all your favorite people. Jamie Lannister, you know, Jason Momoa was back.
I like how you don't know anyone's names
the
besides
dra-
Jamie Lannister.
The dragon lady, like everybody, like I think that wouldn't that just be the crossover to like blow everybody's mind, bro? I'm telling you, like that would do it.
That would be kind of cool, man, because then you can hang out with your favorite characters. Their in character.
They could die and like they could just come back. You know,
just bring them back.
Yeah, just for 2 or 3 episodes. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
When Westworld like ratings start falling, I'm sure they'll. Somebody from HBO give me.
They're
a
already
call.
working on the spinoff for Game of Thrones because they know they need that money, man.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it today because I was rewatching Game of Thrones, as one does. I've been rewatching all the seasons for Game of Thrones again.
Oh gosh.
For fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
haven't even watched them yet.
Come on, man, it breaks my heart. Best show ever. But yeah, I'm so curious, man. What the finale is gonna be like? Ending this show. There's so much pressure, and I just guarantee the budget is gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be a movie, man.
It's gonna be the craziest, but like it's gonna make history. I guarantee it. They're gonna release it, and when they release that, we're gonna find out like every episode is like a crazy battle. It has to be, because there's so much story left to cover. I don't. I wish I had a Game of Thrones podcast because I can just go off about it.
We need to get you a Game of Thrones podcast, an anime podcast.
Just give me all the podcasts, man.
All the podcasts, yeah.
Give me them all.
Yeah.
And then we'll get a RB3 Hot Takes podcast
I
where you're
about
just
that.
giving hot takes and shitting on people, man.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
We need it, bro. We need the truth.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
No, the next one that we all got recommended with high praise is the Ice Storm.
The Ice Storm, yeah.
And RB3 confessed that he adores this movie.
Wow, really? I confess that.
So this movie is one that we both agree that we missed.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we will have another. You know, we'll take another shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen part of it, and it's very much about the reaction to the Watergate scandal, and it's a reaction. Okay. Yeah, it's a reaction to how a certain family took it, and it's crazy because it's an interesting perspective on how American society during that time viewed that scandal. So great, interesting movie that Ang Lee is known for.
Yeah, the Ice Storm. You know, Ice. I think what would be a great idea for an episode, Ace. I'm pitching this to you right now, live on air. Like, what if we did an episode where we went back, picked up all the little movies that we like missed and sprinkled in between all of our episodes, went back, watched those for a week, and then came back and just reviewed them as like a solo episode. You know what I mean?
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
I mean, like that.
Maybe not all of the episodes, but like
sure.
The ones in which we missed one particular movie that is important. So yeah, maybe we could try that.
Yeah.
And Ice Storm, Ice is a big part of that new movie Alpha that came out this weekend with the Snow Dog.
That's your connection, man.
Well, hey, no, I'm just saying, like, that movie is directed by Albert Hughes, black director. Go out there and support black cinema, people.
That movie feels like it's getting buried by the studio. I don't know if you feel the same way when it comes to the marketing. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it though.
Oh, because for me, it's like I barely see any commercials for it or any
I mean, I saw that. I mean, apparently it looks great in IMAX, and it got good reviews. I was gonna see it. So here's what happened this weekend, like on Movie Pass, right? My Adventures in Movie Pass Part 2, right? I go to I look on Movie Pass, and then I was trying to figure out, oh man, I gotta get Movie Pass to see Crazy Rich Asians. So like I go on Movie Pass, and literally the only movie that was like showing on like Friday theaters were just Alpha. Nothing else. I was like, yo, what the? So like I was like, oh fuck. Well, I guess I'm not gonna use Movie Pass to see Crazy Rich Asians. So like, but like, so anyway, like I was like, so I went home. I was like, all right, like I didn't see Alpha, but apparently it's free everywhere, and I have a movie pass, and they got like an 84% Rotten Tomatoes. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna see Alpha on Sunday or something. I check movie pass on Sunday. Literally, the only 2 movies they have are Crazy Rich Asians and Black Klansman, and like no Alpha, no like what the fuck's going on, man? Like I'm trying to watch Alpha over here, people.
It looks like Movie Pass lost its biggest ally.
No, I'm still an ally, man. I'm still an ally. Yeah, I'm still an ally. Movie Pass. So Movie Pass, keep it chucking. I'm still gonna go for my 3 movies a month. So I'm gonna get my money's worth. But
dang, man, that's heartbreaking.
Alpha though, Albert Hughes, director of one of my favorite movies, Menace to Society, and The Defiant Ones on HBO.
Is this why you missed JT's birthday party, man?
I did not miss JT's birthday party, unfortunately, to watch Alpha. Well, not unfortunately. I didn't. It's unfortunate that I missed JT's party. I was at a set that day.
Come on, man.
I was DPing in the film.
Heartbreaking. Ride with the Devil is a film that came out in 1999.
Wow.
It's about the Civil War, and it stars Tobey Maguire and what's his name? It's not here. I thought Jeffrey Wright was in it. Jeffrey Wright.
So hey, this is their Westworld connection. I should have waited till now to make that Westworld.
Yeah. I think he's in it. Let me make sure.
I definitely think that there's a connection between Tobey Maguire and Ang Lee somewhere here, because Tobey Maguire was also in the Ice Storm. So there's they have a little actor-director working relationship here.
I was gonna say, for the most part, we've talked about with a lot of directors. I might be wrong about Jeffrey Wright. With a lot of directors, yeah, he's in it. He feels, Ang Lee specifically feels like he doesn't necessarily use the same actors over and over again. Because with directors like Tarantino, directors like so many directors that we've talked about before, like Chris Nolan, he always uses the same people. But it feels like Ang Lee, for the most part, doesn't. Obviously, you just made that connection right now. But besides that, it doesn't. I don't know if you disagree with me on that. It doesn't feel like he has like, these are my 4 actors. These are my 4. I'm gonna get him throughout all these movies.
Well, I think all of his movies are just so universally different, right? Like he's one of the only directors who can make a, co-Taiwanese, co-Chinese martial arts movie while also making a movie about gay cowboys in Wyoming while also making a movie about, well, I mean that's what the movie's about. To making a movie about a music festival, to making a movie about a guy stuck in the middle of the ocean with a tiger, so they're all so universally different. There's not a lot of the connective thread that I feel like a lot of directors would, like a lot of the Tarantino movies are either westerns or gangster movies, or he has a certain type, so casting the same actors makes sense in that.
That's a good point. It's almost a credit to him, right?
Yeah.
Because that he's able to make such different films. I mean, all credit to him. Either way, check out Ride with the Devil.
Ride with the Devil.
Now let's move on to what made him a star, in my opinion. What made him a superstar, I guess, and that's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. This movie came out in the year 2000, which is the same year that Gladiator came out. This movie,
they're nominated against each other for Best Picture.
That's right. And this movie, I believe he won Best Director for this, right? Or did he win Best Director for Life of Pi? Life of Pi.
Life of Pi. He definitely won Best Director for Life of Pi.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is one of, if not the most popular foreign language film in the U.S. as far as box office wise. And like I said before, I remember the craze that was coming out of this movie, and it's crazy how I've said before how much of a kung fu martial arts film fan I am. I've seen a ton. I've seen, obviously, Bruce Lee's my biggest inspiration. Quite a bit of Jackie Chan movies as well. So I'm used to the Chinese, martial arts film.
Right.
And this movie just took it to another level as far as its popularity and as far as people's obsession with this movie. What do you think it is about this movie that got everyone to pay attention to it so much?
Well, I think it's a lot of things, right? It's I kind of mentioned before the kind of themes of, the kind of universal themes that approaches of life and all these questions that people are answering, but it does it in a very, in a very spectacular way. Like, it's a very beautiful movie. This is a very spectacular kind of journey that's very visual. And I think, beyond most, for most foreign movies, the challenge is most people don't read subtitles. But for a movie like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, it's not really a movie you really need subtitles for. You can kind of just you can kind of just watch the story and kind of engage in it mostly for the most part on a visual standpoint. So it's just one of those type of movies.
What is it with American audiences and subtitles, RB3? Explain that to me, because I don't get it. I obviously, as someone who's a anime watcher,
Right.
I'm used to subtitles. I think it's fine. I like to follow along with subtitles in foreign language films.
Yeah.
Why do people hate reading subtitles so much?
Yeah, well, I mean, some motherfuckers don't know how to read, so I think that's the first problem. Once we get everybody to learn how to read, no, I'm kidding. But there are a lot of people that the education system is very unfortunate in this country. But sure. I think the biggest thing is just people just want to engage. Like, people don't even, people want to watch movies and just kind of turn their brains off. People want to escape from their problems, and like go to the movies and like be free of thought. Like adding the extra notion of reading while watching a movie is probably a lot, for some people. So I mean, I could totally see why, but I think there's a reason why this movie transcended a lot more than other movies. Is just because of how illustrious it is in its visual storytelling and how people made the connections to this movie outside of it just being some sort of art house foreign movie, art house, Taiwanese, movie. Is much more than that. It's much more of a visual, spectacular, epic to a certain extent, but also very universal to a certain extent too.
Yeah, this movie is what stands out the most in this movie, obviously, is the wire work martial arts, which is like an art within itself for people who don't know, because there's different types of martial arts on films, but wire work is a very specific type, and this movie takes it to another level, basically, where basically the protagonist in the film can fly, essentially. I just love watching this movie and seeing everyone just go, peace, and they just fly. Because to me, that's like the most anime thing too. It's like, I'm piecing out of this, woo, and just fly away. I'm surprised like no one actually made that noise as they were flying. I'm like, woo! Like, I totally would. But that's one thing, because obviously the martial arts action in this movie stands out. The fight scenes, right? Because it's so incredible.
All right.
And think about it. The kung fu martial arts wire work stuff wasn't really a thing until The Matrix, when it came to American Hollywood films. Like, Hollywood wasn't really taking that type of films, but The Matrix made it so freaking famous that everyone wanted to do that now, like in the other films. Like, obviously, like the films I mentioned before, the Underworld and Daredevil had some wire work in it as well. And this movie, like I said before, took it to another degree where the entire movie is focused on the martial arts style of the wire work. I also love how this movie has some very over-the-top moments, if not everything is over the top. But the fight scenes where people realize certain fight styles, I don't know why I always find that kind of funny, that you can recognize fight styles just by fighting someone. And that's the first thing that Michelle Yeoh's character says to Ziya Zhang's character, I think is her name, where she's like, "How did you know wounded?" And I find that funny. I don't know why. But that's what stands out the most in this movie on a visual scale. However, on a story scale, it's what we've said before. It's the fact that the entire movie is about what a woman that has that much power, which is Ziha Yang's character, she's so obsessed with breaking out of that normative structure that's built around her culturally, that she rebels completely, and that she learns all these martial arts skills, and she becomes so prolific that she almost becomes a bitter person towards anyone who wants to tell her what to do, because she's had that her whole life. So this is her essentially breaking out to the point of almost extreme, where even Michelle Yeoh says, "You're too selfish. You're not realizing that your actions have consequences, and you're so concerned with breaking out of your culture norm that you're just throwing everything to the wind and actually hurting people and getting people hurt." So that's essentially the point of the movie, is her rebelling and running away and not wanting to get married to the person that her parents want her to marry.
Right, the arranged marriage. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of this movie too. Is the idea of being trapped by your culture, like just in the literal sense of having to marry somebody who you have no connection with. Right. I think that's a very big part of it. And I also think that I think it's also interesting how you have our protagonist as serving as a foil to like the villain played by like Jessica. Is that her name? Jessica Wu or something like that, or Jessica Fox?
Oh, Jade Fox.
Jade Fox.
Yeah.
I call her Jessica, man. I'm so bad at names.
No, it's all good.
But yeah, how her character is someone who was cheated by this system, right? Someone who was trying to train and trying to become stronger, but all of the instructors were like trying to sleep with her, like, and she became so frustrated that she just had she killed the dude and took off with the book to try to teach herself, and how that's a foil between her versus this one versus our protagonist, who is trying to move in the direction of learning too. It's just funny in that sense, but in the same way, it's almost like it's really just the same conventional like hero journey story that we see in like most other movies too, right? Somebody who's reluctant to get into action, but realizes that they possess the abilities that no one else necessarily possesses, and uses that to strive and conquer.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially. It's interesting because that's kind of the villain of the movie is created by the norms of the culture.
Yeah.
Right. She became a villain because she was always put to the side, always stepped on because she was a woman, or never accepted, never fully accepted into the warrior culture, the martial arts warrior culture, that they even didn't want to train her because she was a woman. And that concept is all throughout Eastern cinema and Eastern culture, is the concept of training a woman the same martial arts that you train other guys. Even Tarantino does that with his movies, Kill Bill and Kill Bill 1 and Kill Bill 2, where he talks a little bit about that with the super crazy over the top guy in Kill Bill Volume 2, as far as training this stereotypical white woman from American culture. He's very hesitant towards that. And they make it a point throughout the entire movie to talk about why he's hesitant towards that. So, yeah, that's an interesting point that you brought up, that Jade Fox is a villain because of the culture.
The system, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it's very respectful to his culture that it's representing, too. I mean, obviously, Ang Lee is not Chinese, but this is a Chinese story about Chinese warriors and all this business. And it definitely takes influence from, Chinese cinema and Chinese film culture as well. And I think, you mentioned Kill Bill. I think Kill Bill is an example of a movie that's a direct descendant of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, in the sense that, a movie like Kill Bill probably wouldn't even get greenlit if a movie like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon didn't come out in 2000 and made $100 million in the United States and won 4 Academy Awards. I don't think any studio would have, approved of doing a big budget martial arts movie, without this. So
yeah,
that's a big part of it.
Yeah, we said in the beginning of this episode how Ang Lee impacted so much, and this also impacted foreign films coming into more Hollywood forefront. In my opinion, I feel like it gave a chance to other Eastern cinema, Korean films, for example, which are super popular. Japanese films. Japanese anime films. Like this gave studios the balls basically to say, hey, let's greenlight these movies that have subtitles, that are foreign films, and let's pay more attention to them, specifically with anime, but also with a ton of Korean films. Like I've seen a ton of Korean films. I don't know if you have, but I don't know if you've noticed how the perception on those films has changed, where it comes to, that's the Korean whatever, to now the movie that you saw, I forget what it's called. It's not The Handmaid's Tale.
The Handmaiden.
The Handmaiden. That's what it's called. And how popular that movie got, and how popular other what's his name, Bong Joon-ho.
I know you're talking about. I never get his name right.
The director of Snowpiercer and Okja.
And Okja, yeah. And the same thing with The Handmaiden, directed by the same guy who did Old Boy and all those other fantastic films as well. And yeah, Korean cinema is definitely a big staple on what we perceive as Americans.
Jung-ho Bong.
Jung-ho Bong. Is that the guy who did Okja?
Or Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho's the guy who did Okja, right?
Yes.
Right.
I feel like this guy, I was also considering doing him for an episode because he has a lot of
oh man, he's amazing. Films. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no. I definitely want to. Maybe even our next one. Who knows? But his popularity, I feel, is a direct descendant of the power of Ang Lee, basically, and his impact in Hollywood. I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel.
Well, I think what's interesting about Ang Lee is that he made a career of making American movies before he went and made Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It was more of a going back to not necessarily Taiwanese roots, but to the Eastern roots, right? Of like the Asian culture, kind of deal. He's going back to that as opposed to something more American and commercial and stuff like that. So it's just very fascinating to me. And, this movie ended up winning. It was nominated for Best Picture, like I said, against Gladiator. It also won Best Foreign Film, which a lot of people say was just like the consolation prize for like not winning Best Picture. But it's also fascinating to think in that sense in the context of today's Oscars, because today, at least back when this movie came out, there was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Chocolat, which is not necessarily a foreign movie, but mostly French, right? Like mostly in French language. Two foreign movies that are nominated for Best Picture. Crouching Tiger ended up winning Best Foreign Movie or whatever. But is that just seen as consolation prizes? When we look at today's movies, like, will that kind of same fate be bestowed on movies, like not just foreign language movies, which kind of already is. You don't see a lot of foreign movies nominated for Best Picture, but animated movies as well, now popular movies too. So there's just a whole broader sense of this is like kind of a micro example of something that kind of is affected by that. That kind of is affected by the sub best this, best that, and not being in like real contention for the other Best Picture categories.
Yeah, which is the one that everyone wants and everyone should be going after, right?
Yeah.
It's the idea of marginalizing foreign films because they're foreign. They're not spoken in English. And the idea of why can't quality be quality? Why can't the best film be the best film? Whether it's in Spanish, English, Italian, doesn't matter. And yeah, we've seen that. What was the French film that got Best Picture that is recent? Wasn't there one?
The Artist?
The Artist.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Didn't that get
But even that's set in Hollywood though.
Yeah.
And they're not even saying they're not speaking French. Right? They're speaking English throughout the movie. Yeah, it's just fascinating thinking that sense. But but when you think about it, maybe if there was a popular film category, maybe Gladiator would have won that and Crouching Tiger would have won Best Picture. Maybe that would have been the situation to have. Either way, I think the solution is not to have a Best Popular Film category. I think the solution is, and hear me out, people, because this is radical. A lot of times these days, in modern times, like Oscar voters receive screeners, right? Screeners just to watch movies. So they're only watching movies on the small screen. What if, and back when movies like Gladiator, Crouching Tiger, Titanic, when these big gigantic movies were winning Best Picture, they were forced to have to watch those movies on the big screen because they just didn't have screeners. They didn't have like DVDs to send out back then. So my proposal is cut back on the screeners, get people into the theaters, make people watch movies. I don't like Blade Runner 2049, but I'm sure if there's a bunch of Oscar voters who saw Blade Runner 2049 in IMAX 3D, they feel a little differently about it if they just watched 5 seconds of it on their TV, So that's my opinion.
That's never gonna happen. You know that.
Yeah, it's never gonna
People love their screeners, man.
Yeah.
I have friends in SAG. I have friends in the DGA, and those screeners are clutch.
Yeah.
Those screeners come in quick, and people live for that stuff.
Yeah.
I saw an episode of Adam Ruins Everything. I don't know if you've seen that show when he talks about the Oscars and how it's all about money and campaigning. And screeners is something that he actually focused on for a little bit, where he talked about like, how can you not, man? I mean, you get a screener, it's got like a cool little thing. Sometimes it comes with a gift, like a little memorabilia type thing. I mean, at this point, that's a huge issue, and I'm very, like I've talked about a million times, is traditionalist. I'm so traditionalist when it comes to watching a movie in the theater, which is why we had that debate about Netflix, and I have a very passionate take on that because I do feel like it makes a ginormous difference watching a movie in your house and watching it in the cinemas. Like it'll make, like, it made a difference for me watching all the movies that I saw last year. Like Get Out. I don't know if I would have loved Get Out as much if I watched it at home. I'm sure I would have thought it's cool, but having the audience be there and being crazy for it, and our reactions were like yelling back at the screen. I felt like we were in it together. We were Daniel Kaluuya's character. We were Chris. We were like, I don't know. It felt that way. It felt like like an event type film. And I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much and said it was my favorite movie if I saw it at home by myself while I was cooking and texting.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Either way, what is it called? Popular film category is the dumbest thing. I still think it's so dumb.
Yeah. Hey, people go to theaters, people.
Come on, man.
Oscar voters.
Quality is quality, like I said before. Whether it's a comic book movie or whether it's a small movie about racist people.
And you really honestly can't tell me that Gladiator is like a significantly better movie than Black Panther. Like, honestly, you know what I mean? Like, significantly, like in the terms of like Black Panther's like an 8, Gladiator's like a 9. You know what I mean? It's not like Gladiator's a 10 and, you know, Black Panther's like a 4. You know what I mean? Like they're close in scale. Like, I think it's comparable reasonably. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To a certain extent. Like,
I'm with you. I'm with you. Gladiator is one of my favorite all-time movies. I've said that before.
No, right, of course, yeah. I mean, but it's not like a Citizen Kane, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I guess. Yeah. I saw that. What's his face? Colin Jost from SNL got a lot of shit for saying something about the popular film category and how he's like, why can't cool movies win Best Picture and stuff? And people trashed him on Twitter, and I still don't get why they trashed him on Twitter. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand why people get mad about stupid stuff. Either way, we're moving on.
We're moving on
to, speaking of comic book movies, his next movie that we're going to talk about is Hulk. I was going to say The Hulk, but it's called Hulk.
Hulk, yeah.
RB3. Oh, I heard you got thoughts on this movie.
Do I have thoughts?
I heard you got hot takes on this movie.
I have a hot take on this movie.
You told me just by your looks, man. Tell me why you don't like this movie, RB3. Ready, set, go.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I actually don't even like really remember all that much about it. Like, honestly, like I definitely I watched it. I definitely remember. I remember the standout things. Like, I remember the mutant dogs. I remember the Fatherhood. I remember, Eric Bana as the Hulk, and he's like going across like the military base, like wrecking shit. I definitely appreciated that stuff. You know, CGI is not looking good on this movie. Does not look good on this movie. Did not hold
Doesn't
up.
hold
well.
up. Yeah.
The comic book panels are definitely memorable. That's something you can never forget. Who's the co-star in this movie?
It's Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer
Connelly.
Plays
Betty Ross.
And
then it got changed to Liv Tyler.
Liv Tyler, also very beautiful.
Yeah.
Both actresses who we featured heavily, one in our Darren Aronofsky episode, one in our Michael Bay episode.
That's right.
There you go.
Yeah. Liv Tyler changed my life, man.
She
changed it.
The Hulk is definitely a character that
it's
deals
Hulk
with,
RB3.
I'm sorry, Hulk. Well, I mean, the Hulk himself, the Bruce Banner.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Is a character who reflects the Jekyll and Hyde, split personality, right? Like, dueling between someone's inner anger and outward persona, the hiding of it. I don't know, man. I'm grasping.
Dang, RB3. I was waiting for some hot takes. I was ready for some crazy stuff, and you're coming at me with gibberish, bruh.
Gibberish?
No, I'm playing with you, man.
That's how bad.
Here's my thing.
That's exactly how I write on my college papers, by the way. So
the Hulk, I'm gonna call it the Hulk. Screw it. Hulk is a movie that wasn't very well received, right? Mm-hmm. It's a movie that I remember the reaction from it coming from people like my parents, specifically my mom.
Wow.
Where she was like, "Oh, I love the freaking TV show, the Lou Ferrigno TV show that would play." Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see this. And then the reaction being like, he doesn't look real. It was so, that comic book panel stuff, man, is the number one thing that just sucked me out of the movie. Just took me out of the movie. And I get what Ang Lee's going for. Because I feel like when Ang Lee was approached for this movie, or if he approached the studio for this movie, I feel like he specifically wanted to say, I'm doing a comic book movie. Let's make it look like a comic book. And it just didn't work out. I mean, that doesn't always work out. I mean, he wanted to be stylistic with it. But I feel like that's the number one thing that took me out of the movie. Like the scene where the bomb blows up behind the guy and he goes, oh, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't look great. Like it doesn't, the tone feels like it's stretching too much between fatherhood and death and destruction and becoming someone you're not and all this stuff. And then it goes to a comic book panel of a guy making a face at the camera and making a still face and then spin it around. And it's like, oh, I don't know if this is good. That's the biggest thing that stands out for me. And also, the biggest thing that stands out for me is that video game, man. Did you play that Hulk video game?
I played the Hulk video game. No,
that thing was fire, man. For the PS2, I think it was a PS2.
PS2.
That was one of the coolest games I've played like throughout my entire childhood.
Wow.
I love that freaking game. And it inspired, obviously, other Hulk games that came out that people liked, where you're literally just a Hulk and you're tearing shit up. You're smashing stuff. You're smashing tanks. And it's one of the most fun games I've remembered playing as a kid. And for that reason, by itself, I will give all the credit to Mr. Ang Lee for giving me this movie. Just for that video game.
Great movie for a great video game.
Hey, man, the memories, those memories that I had of playing that game was epic.
Now, I do remember having Spider-Man 2, the video game. Best superhero video game of all time. And then I also had Spider-Man 3, the video game too, which was actually kind of the same as Spider-Man 2, but a little worse. I had the X-Men Origins Wolverine video game. That one was super bloody. That was M-rated.
Was that X-Men Origins Wolverine, or was that just
Origins.
Wolverine? It had nothing to do with the movies.
I think it was X-Men Origins.
Because there's
or it came out around the same time. I don't know. Like it definitely came out around the same time, but I don't know if it's like the Wolverine. If it was just called the Wolverine. Like I know there was also a very specific Wolverine just game itself.
That one, yeah. I think that's what I'm thinking about.
Okay, I don't know if that was the same one, but like I definitely there was an M-rated version, and I had the M-rated. There's an M-rated Wolverine game, and I had the M-rated version. So I don't know if that was the same one as the X-Men Wolverine.
Okay,
maybe I'm remembering things wrong.
I think you might be.
I don't know.
Because I don't think they made it M-rated for the movie.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Actually, I think maybe. Okay, I think maybe I had both games. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't remember games. You know what I did as a lot as a kid? I traded in games. Like every time I would just play it and then just trade it in.
What was that place called?
GameStop.
Was it GameStop?
I used to do it at GameStop.
Okay.
I also used to go Game Crazy, which was
You remember Hollywood Video, man?
Hollywood Video, exact. That's where the Game Crazies used to be, man.
Yeah.
Used to be Hollywood Video than Game Crazy, man. Yeah, man.
I feel like they were way more clutch than Blockbuster.
Oh, 100%.
Because Blockbuster was like, oh, we have the movies, but when it came to video games, I was like, y'all ain't that cool.
Yeah, that was whack.
Man.
That was super whack.
Yeah, I remember renting games was the shit.
Dude,
growing up.
Yeah.
That's all we did, man.
Yeah. I used to do that for when I had not Xbox. I had a GameCube, and I used to bring games for that like all the time. It was a little different because like for PlayStation, I didn't necessarily like rent those. I just like bought them and then like sold them like GameStop, and then like we get like I'll sell like 5 of them that I like already beat, and then like give them back and then like sell them back for like one new one or whatever. Like that's always what I did as a kid. So I literally have no idea what games I played. Like so I'll just shuffle through them and just trade them off. Yeah, except for the ones I really like.
Movie games were my shit, man.
Yeah,
game. I had a ton of Star Wars games. Obviously, I've talked about the Star Wars pod racing game. Shout out to the Star Wars pod racing game,
right?
Which came in between 1 and 2, episode 1 and episode 2. I remember buying that game. This is the game I'm talking about, by the way. That's the cover for it.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing the cover for this everywhere. Yeah, I definitely remember that.
The shit. It was so freaking cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so that's all about.
No, for real. Like that can make an impact.
Yeah.
That can make an impact.
No doubt.
When you take story structure and put it inside a video game and try to market off the structure. But besides that, this is pre like MCU craziness. So it's a staple inside the Hulk universe and taking that character and making him central character, right? Because now, if you think about it, the Hulk has never worked as a central character. What do you think about the Incredible Hulk, which came out in 2008?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it works? Because a lot of people have made the argument that Hulk is better as a supporting character. He's better as someone who just comes in, makes some punches, and then pieces out.
Well, I just don't think, like, they did 2 origin stories, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
There wasn't really a chance to do, like, a real, like, non-origin story Hulk movie. I think if it was...
Well, technically, the Incredible Hulk isn't... You don't see him do the gamma ray experiment.
Right, but I mean, it's still,
him.
like, the first time... It's like the first few days of being Hulk, you know what I mean? Like... You don't really see, like, I love what they did in Thor Ragnarok and going into Infinity War. Like, I like that storyline. I feel like if you were to piece all of that out, and then if you were to develop a storyline of a Hulk who is developing, if you make the story about a Hulk who's getting smarter and battling with Bruce Banner, make it a real Jekyll and Hyde story, I think that would be amazing. I think that would be an amazing movie. They just hadn't gotten to that point. And so I think Kevin Feige even said this at one point, because I think he said, like, Mark Ruffalo came to him and said, hey, I think we should do this, you know, we should do a full Hulk movie. And then, like, you know, Kevin Feige was like, oh, what should we do in this kind of Hulk story? And then Mark Ruffalo was like, oh, I should do this and this and this. And then Kevin Feige said, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. We could stretch that out over the next 3 movies. And you definitely see that story building out through Ragnarok, through Infinity War, and I'm sure Infinity War Part 2 or some other movie is going to finish that whole arc that he's going on. So I think that whole thing alone in and of itself, like being a Hulk, like struggling to being the Hulk for so long that you don't even remember who Bruce Banner is, and then struggling with that, and grappling with you wanting to use the Hulk, but the Hulk not wanting to be used as a tool in and of himself. Like, I think that's a really fascinating story. Just haven't explored that yet. So.
Yeah, it's funny because the Russo brothers kind of talked about that a little bit, because everyone was talking about how the Hulk was a little baby.
Yeah.
I was going to say other words. And it's like what you called me, man. In Infinity War, but at the fact that it's more like the Hulk is tired of being used and given more perspective and more of a POV of Hulk and Bruce, because it's 2 different people, essentially. And who should have control of the body. I don't know if you saw them talking about that.
Yeah, I saw that interview too, yeah.
So it's interesting because that's a different perspective to take. Whereas I feel like Ang Lee's Hulk is much more kind of what you were saying, the Jekyll and Hyde thing.
Well, it is, yeah, but it's just really bad, you know? And I think it should be elevated to the next level, though, you know what I mean? I think it should be full on, like, I want to see a Hulk where you see, like, in the comic books where he has, like, the full, like, trench coat, not trench coat, but, like, the full, like, full scientific get up and, like, writing notes, like, he's just as smart as Bruce Banner. Like, I'd love to see an entire movie.
You don't think Mark Ruffalo's is smart, man?
Well, no, he's a fucking baby. He doesn't even want to come out after he got the hands from Thanos, you know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ. I went back and rewatched the beginning clip of that, man. Damn, Thanos really kicked his ass. Yo, that was fucked up. Like,
no Infinity War and no Infinity Stones or anything, man.
Yeah, he just like gave him the hands, yo.
Yeah.
He's like, let me take off the glove real quick. Let me show him, like, bop, bop, bop. I was like, damn. So that's nuts.
Yeah, but he also got his ass kicked by Thor in Thor Ragnarok.
No, yeah. Well, I mean,
he did.
Won. No, he
when
won.
Thor went full lightning mode,
when he went full lightning,
he kicked his ass.
Yeah.
He freaking made him see stars, bro, and made him see lightning.
But then, when the fight ends, you just see, you know, Thor going up for the big thing, and then Hulk just like kind of grabs him. We don't know what happens after that point.
No, it's you're missing. Yeah, no, it's freaking what's his face? Not the Collector, the other homie. The Master.
Whatever.
The Grand Master, and he shocks him. I don't know if you remember that, because Hulk was kicking his ass, and then Jeff Goldblum's character stops him. He's like, "Oh crap!" and he just shocks him, and then he goes, and then he stops, and that was it. And I was like, "Oh, you stopped him from kicking his ass because he didn't want his prize fighter to be humiliated." because he thought that he was gonna win.
I gotta rewatch
Hulk is
Thor again.
better and stronger than Thor's better and stronger than Hulk, bro. Thor's better and stronger than anyone. Thor friggin' kicked Thanos' ass.
I don't know about that.
He kicked Thanos'
They still
ass.
lost, bro. They still lost.
Yeah, he still lost, but all he had to do was like aim a different direction, and it would have been over.
Yeah,
would have been done in 1 second.
fucked up.
Thor, shout out to Thor. Pop figures right there. But either way,
it's everybody's fault. Infinity War happened. It's Star-Lord's fault. It's Thor's fault.
It's not Thor's fault. It's Star-Lord's fault. I see that, but not Thor, man. Come on. Don't start with that, man.
It's totally Thor's fault.
But yeah, with Hulk, it's interesting because it's kind of difficult to. I feel it's difficult to tackle that character. I personally feel like it's not necessarily.
No, it's tough. Yeah.
The most interesting character to make a movie about.
Yeah.
Because it's literally a black and white character. And similar to that movie, he made a very similar film called Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
Dealing with the duality of life and kind of.
Brokeback Mountain is a movie that came out in 2005 starring Heath Ledger, R.I.P., and Jake Gyllenhaal. My first thing about this movie, those are two future legends, man.
Yeah.
Those are two. I mean, Heath is already a legend, but I'm telling you, man, Jake Gyllenhaal is a different level. He's a monster actor. I've been, singing the praises of Jake Gyllenhaal for years.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nightcrawler. I feel like he was the best actor.
Yeah. Another X-Men character.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm talking about the movie. But Nightcrawler, even the freaking Boston bombing one he did, he was amazing in that movie.
Oh,
and no one saw it.
Hero or something like that?
I forget what it's called, but no one saw it.
Yeah.
It's so good in that. Either way, Heath Ledger is what, in my opinion, steals this movie. But this movie meant a lot when it came to, as we talked about before, representation. What do you feel like the impact was on Hollywood films, and especially how Oscars, Academy Awards views certain types of films?
Well, I mean, definitely, just speaking on the movie, I guess on his own, I think Brokeback Mountain is a very important a very important landmark in cinema, not only just because of its portrayal of LGBTQ issues and gay issues, but I also think in its setting, right, like in the setting of rural Wyoming, and telling this romance tale through sheep herders and all and non-conventional kind of people. I mean, these are stories that we don't necessarily hear from in general, let alone two individuals who are deeply rooted because essentially, we talked about tradition a lot. This is essentially a movie about American tradition, right? And American traditionalism in the farming and the sheep herding and being the old school definition of masculinity, right? Especially living in the rural areas that they live in, but then grappling with was not associated with masculinity and homosexuality, right? And coping with that, especially in that time period, during that time, not progressive when it comes to gay issues and not understanding of those things, to which where the characters often think about the consequences of them being together, but ultimately looking beyond that for the romanticization of love, right? And we talked about earlier how Sense and Sensibility is a movie about how you have one who's more of the logic based, more of the headstrong kind of person, and the Emma Thompson character and the Kate Winslet character who's more of the sensible, sweet, caring, romantic person. That's the same way in this movie too, with the Jake Gyllenhaal being the more romantic, the younger guy who thinks there's a future for us, whereas the Heath Ledger character is the family man who thinks about his family and the consequences that are brought on by his activity and stuff like that too. So it's just all very fascinating and real and gripping. And I think when it comes to highlighting the oppressed group, the marginalized group of the LGBTQ community, is also putting a shine on the Oscar recognition for it too, right? On how big of a thing that ended up becoming, right? How I think this movie kind of set up a thing where there is a more traditionally inclusive gay movie, and not gay movie, but a movie that represents gay rights or gay issues, usually getting nominated for Best Picture. So I think this movie definitely set it off, and it won Best Directors too. It won Best Director, which is another controversy. It didn't end up winning Best Picture. Lost to Crash in 2000.
That's right. The most famous Oscar movie ever, Crash. I'm just kidding. But yeah, everything you said, essentially. I mean, the concept of taking the setting and not making it like San Francisco hippies fall in love. No, it's like rural, super hyper conservative, super hostile towards anything that's LGBT during that time. These are like super hyper masculine type of normatives and norms that come within that culture, because it is a culture within itself. I mean, we don't consider it a culture in the sense of like foreign because it's in America, right? But it's still a culture. You know, the bull riding guys, because Jake Gyllenhaal plays a bull rider,
Right.
and that's a huge portion of the movie. And like you said, what I was gonna say is the fact that this kind of made the, I don't want to say gay craze, but the craze of like I don't know what else to call it, but like the fact that movies like Moonlight can get Best Picture,
Right.
and,
I mean, you think 2009 Milk was nominated for Best
Milk
Picture with
is another perfect example
with Sean Penn. 2000 and I want to say it was 11 with The Kids Are All Right, a movie that represents lesbian culture. 2000, like you said, 2017 with
Blue is the
Moonlight.
Warmest Color is another one that's
Blue is
very
Blue is the Warmest Color was a nominee for Best. I think it was nominated for Best Foreign.
I think it was, yeah.
But then I mean, and you also think about there's another movie that
the
came
Chilean one that came out.
I missed
A Fantastic Woman, I think. What
that's
it's called.
right. That's right. That's right.
That's Call Me by Your
Name is another example. And I mean the example. I mean we go through and through a lot of examples of those kind of movies, and I think that's a very important piece of what should stand to be represented in cinema in general. So I think that's very, very progressive, and a lot of times there's still a high like underrepresentation of LGBTQ characters in mainstream movies anyway. I know that now there's a lot more of a conversation and including openly gay characters in mainstream blockbusters now. When we talk about Disney movies, or because they have the whole thing with they recently announced somebody was like openly gay in one of their movies or something like that.
What was the movie that they said? I forgot. They said a movie. Yeah, you're right, but I forget which one it
something
was.
Something like that. But it was. But then also, I mean, they play around with it a lot too, like with Olaf and Beauty and the Beast and Lando and Solo.
Was
not necessarily gay, but
I don't know. I almost feel like they use it as a crutch, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
they almost use it as like
it's
fake
marketing.
Yeah, where it's like it's good. Is it? It was never really gay in the movie.
Right.
This isn't gay at all.
Right.
Like that's what I thought in Beauty and the Beast, because I saw the whole film and I'm like, there was zero gay.
That was. I don't even know why I brought in Beauty and the Beast while we're talking about a serious movie. Hey, Brokeback Mountain. But I'm just saying all to say that Brokeback Mountain is one of the more influential movies to come out of Ang Lee's filmography, without a doubt.
One of my favorite stories coming out of this movie, and it's a story I heard a long time ago, so I might be getting the facts wrong. But after their first love scene or whatever, the fact that Ang Lee turned to Jake Gyllenhaal and he's like, "Man, that's the gayest shit ever, bro."
He said that?
Yeah, he said that. Yeah. He said something like that. I forget what it was, but the fact that he said something like, "That's the gayest shit ever," or something like that, after they kissed or hooked up or whatever. That to me is funny, because I think that's like the funniest, most noticeable thing in the movie is the fact that the guy making the movie is okay to joking about it, even though it's a hyper serious, very dramatic movie that talks about what happens to your family, what happens to your upbringing, what happens to your life, what happens to your kids, right? The fact that he's dealing with this issue, especially Heath Ledger's character. Even Jake Gyllenhaal, though, is dealing with his own stuff. But Heath Ledger's character, especially with his daughters. I love the scene when Jake Gyllenhaal's character gets mad at the grandpa. And he's like, "Sit your ass down right now." Even that is like showing his like masculinity to a guy who's kind of overlooking him. What is masculinity
Even mean.
Even mean.
Yeah.
When you're in that culture, right?
Yeah.
It's all these questions that come in throughout the movie and talk about how this relationship goes throughout the years, and the fact that we get that reveal of Jake Gyllenhaal's character's death and how he died, gruesomely and awful because of the hostility towards LGBT during that time.
Right. And, it's fascinating, this and another, you kind of look at this and compare it to another recent Best Picture nominee, Carol, right, which is another movie.
That's right.
That's another LGBTQ thing, but it's about, it's with
Rooney
Mara and Kate Blanchett. And they are a couple that's, this is also a period piece where they have to hide their sexualities from, like, their actual families and keep to themselves and kind of live in secret as they wimps upon, like, this hopeless romance, Like, it's just fascinating how, rural American 1970s is a lot harsher on gay culture, it's gay men culture than, how we look at something like women, being gay or things like that. It's just a different, it's a fascinating conversation when we look at the consequences and the way that kind of thing is looked upon. So,
yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting topic, in my opinion. I've been reading up on different LGBT stories and LGBT moments that happen to different people. And it's interesting because it's a perspective that, like, what's that show on Netflix? Is another one example. Queer Eye, I think it's called.
I don't watch that show.
But it's an example of the whole show is about introducing fashion, which is something that the gay community has embraced, to other people from different cultures that don't necessarily accept the LGBT community, but they accept what they stand for when it comes to fashion, right?
Yeah. Just like the Migos. Like, the Migos definitely rock some really flamboyant shit, but they also have made, at least one of the members of the Migos have made not anti, but like kind of almost borderline homophobic stuff. So it's just funny. Like, that's just how they embrace the fashion. But not
you brought me to my next topic about how the hip hop community has viewed the LGBT issues and LGBT community within itself. Because we have that famous episode from Atlanta Band that talks about it and says one of my favorite lines when he's talking about what's his name? Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner. When he says, like, oh yeah, he's just been doing the same thing that white rich people have always been doing whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
Remember that line?
Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of telling of what Donald Glover is trying to say about the LGBT community and how sometimes hip hop communities view it as like, oh, you're just rich and doing what you want. Like, you're not as marginalized as the African American community, because certain people from the LGBT kind of make a, well, what about this kind of thing when it comes to representation and when it comes to mistreatment.
Well, I mean, I don't really have. I mean, I definitely think that
I'm talking to some controversial stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm heading it head on.
Well, I don't think all of hip hop is homophobic. You know what I mean? I definitely think, Jay-Z and Beyonce have always been the activists for pro.
But that's Jay-Z and Beyonce.
But right? I mean, Kanye too. Back in 2005, he had the interview where he said that, Tyler the Creator, is a little bit on the spectrum, at least that we could tell.
Is he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, he raps about kissing boys like all the time.
Okay.
But we just don't know. He never like came out.
Well, I know Frank Ocean has also been.
Frank Ocean is an example of somebody who is gay and then came out and is still relatively accepted.
Yeah.
I Heart McConan is another gay dude who was a hip hop star. I mean, his career didn't fall because he was gay. He just didn't make hot music anymore. But Lil Peep is somebody who passed away recently who was also homosexual as well.
That's right.
But I don't know. I mean, hip hop has progressed, right? And there's definitely more of an embrace. Even if there's not necessarily a lot of homosexuality or pro-homosexual lyrics or whatever, there's still definitely an embrace of homosexual kind of stuff. I mean, I hate to point the guy. I hate to say, I don't know how the guy's sexual orientation is, but a guy like Lil Uzi presents himself as very, very feminine. Oh, yeah. But I mean, he raps about females all the time. So but again, rappers are professional liars, so you really don't know. or you don't know if he's bi either. So I don't know what his deal is, but he definitely represents a more feministic, more flamboyant type of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, I've shown. I don't know if I've shown it to you, but there's a YouTuber who like has like a running series. It's like a 30-second clip or like a 1-minute clip of like his roommate listens to like a guy for a week and what happens to him. Like he did one with XXXTentacion, and then he did one with Little Uzi. And he's like, "Hey, yo, man, what you rocking, man? Oh, I'm on that Little Uzi shit, bro." And then he comes back in his room and he has like a wig on. He's like, "I'm dancing Little Uzi," and he just does like a super flamboyant. It's so funny, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
Especially because every song that comes on of Little Uzi, like what's it? Please tell me it's Little Uzi. The "Look at my rollie, look at your rollie." That's small. That song is like, bro, I'm dancing too. But the fact that that's kind of the perception that he brings into his music, and I laugh because I still think of like the E! News interview with Lil Uzi. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
When he's on the red carpet. Oh my god, it's so funny. And also, I'm laughing too at the. Did you see the A$AP Rocky with Jason Collins?
Oh no,
you haven't seen. It's the funniest meme that I've seen in the past 2 days. It's basically A$AP going off on the stage for some award show. I forget what it is. And he's out there with Jason Collins. and he's talking about like marginalized people, and he's like, "Oh, we've been marginalized for this, for that, for this," and then he points to Jason Collins and he's like, "Homosexuals." And then the camera does like a little close in on Jason Collins' face, and he's like, "Okay." It's the funniest thing I've ever seen, because it's the kind of concept of like someone who's trying to be pro, supportive. Someone like A$AP Rocky who's trying to be very supportive of that, and also, but at the same time, be like, "Look, you're a homosexual," and it's like, whoa, bro, chill it with that word, right? Because it just makes it funny that we've learned about the terms to use and what not to use and all that kind of stuff that's been going on with the LGBT community for years, right? Even the word "gay" is something that was talked about quite a bit during the 70s and 60s of using that word to describe homosexuals. But the fact that he chose that word on national TV and just pointed at it,
that's funny.
It's so hilarious. But yeah, there's different issues that go within itself when it comes to LGBT representation. But I just thought that the hip hop one is an interesting question to bring up.
Yeah, man.
Because I really do feel like, it's controversial. So
we should, I could give you my Filmstruck pass. I don't know if you have Filmstruck, but I give you my Filmstruck password. There's an entire section that's dedicated to gay and lesbian films.
And just binging that, I don't know if I can handle that.
Hey, man,
that's a lot. Well, that's a lot of films.
We could do one for like Pride. Is it like Pride Week? Pride
Month, it's over,
something?
Bro. That shit's over.
For next year. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Talk about some directors who tackle that kind of deal.
Lust and Caution, or just Lust Caution. RB3. Give me your hot takes on this movie.
This one is another one I missed.
This one, the only thing you need to know about this movie, it's NC-17.
Oh, really? Now, with a title like Lust, and with Lust in title, it sounds like a
Lust Caution.
NC-17. But hey, I know this one was 2 hours 36 minutes, something like that. It's also nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Golden Globes, if I'm not mistaken. So I did not see this one, unfortunately, but maybe we could pick between this one and Ice Storm, of which we should review.
One of them is NC-17, the other one's not.
Right. I'm sure this one.
It's difficult to choose, man.
Yeah. I'm sure this one. I'm actually sure this one might actually say a lot about Ang Lee's like stuff, but we just completely missed it. Oh, I completely missed it, at least. I don't know if Ace.
Taking Woodstock.
Taking Woodstock is a movie I saw on cable many years ago.
Interesting.
It first came on HBO.
This one was not well received.
No, it wasn't as well received, but I appreciate the appreciation towards good musical culture. Something that I think is a very important aspect of.
Let's finish up our conversation with Life of Pi.
Yeah.
And Billy's long ass halftime walk.
Is that what
I don't know why I always call it that. Billy's long ass halftime walk, long title.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just making that up. But
have you seen Billy Lynn's thing? All right. Well, let's get to Life of Pi, so I could crack that movie open. That's a different kind of movie.
Life of Pi is a movie that you said it was your first introduction to Ang Lee, or at least in theaters it was, right?
Theaters, yeah. And understanding it being an Ang Lee movie.
This is also a movie that you read the book of, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your thoughts, RB3. Why did this movie get so much love?
Well, why does the movie get so much love? I think it's another visual spectacular, right?
But doesn't the Oscars, aren't they known for taking story over visuals?
Well, I think it has a moving story. I don't know if necessarily I particularly enjoyed. I didn't really love the book, and honestly, I don't really love the movie either. Mainly because I have issues with the ending, but like I definitely think that this movie definitely opens up a lot when it comes to deeper ideas of Hinduism and these kind of themes of the reincarnated and how we reincarnate people through figures and metaphorical figures and things like that, and how the exploration of being alone on a journey can really open somebody's mind to self-reflectiveness to a certain extent. So these are all ideas I agree with.
The biggest thing I took from it is storytelling. What do you think it has to say about storytelling? Well, and how one perceives the situations that have happened to them?
It's like a meta story about storytelling to a certain extent, right? Like it's about a dude telling a story to somebody else, and how relaying a story in that kind of sense, in that kind of fashion, can lead to a different kind of interpretation of how we see those of how we see those events, of how we see our memories and our past, and how reflecting on it, using other symbols and other ideas, and instead of interpreting it at its face value, can actually hold something longer and more withstanding about the people you care about, at least in the sense that I get it. Because at the end of, I don't know if should we like spoil the end of the movie, or, because this movie did come out 6 years ago, because this movie is all, the whole idea is this dude stuck in a boat with a tiger. The end of the movie implies that, the tiger is supposed to represent, like a motherly type of figure, motherly or fatherly? Did you watch this movie?
I was going to say, isn't it fatherly?
I think fatherly.
I thought the mother was the other.
Or the mother was like the not gorilla, but
orangutan.
Like orangutan. Yeah.
Yeah,
fatherhood, and I think that's also a theme that we see very consistently in Ang Lee's filmography, is how we paint fatherhood in a certain kind of image, a certain kind of respect, and this culture is kind of embraced in the animalistic kind of sense, at least with the portrayal of a tiger, right? Richard Parker is the name of the tiger. So yeah, I don't know. So that's
Peter Parker's dad.
Peter Parker. Yeah. Isn't Peter Parker's dad really Richard Parker?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a thing.
By the way, Richard Parker was a character in The Amazing Spider-Man. Came out in 2012, same year The Life of Pi came out, which also featured the guy in this movie. Pardon me for forgetting his name, but he's also the same guy who plays Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Ooh, is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Holy crap. That's an interesting connection.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, you're totally right.
That takes. Somebody give me in the Schmodown match, man. If you're listening,
come on.
Match out there. Or at least let me manage somebody.
I'm probably never going to do it.
Hey, let's get you out there too, Ace.
But yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, Richard Parker, man. Peter Parker's dad.
Richard Parker, Peter Parker.
I like how that movie was sort of getting into it. Because I don't know if they say that they're agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but they kind of imply that they were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, interesting.
Because they were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Peter Parker's parents. That's like the canon
really?
Interpretation of it.
Do you think we could see Peter Parker's parents come up in the TV show?
Nope. It's not going to happen. But either way, Richard Parker, man. Shout out to Peter Parker's parents. Peter Parker's dad. But for me, it's also like, when it comes to the storytelling aspect, the idea of tragic situations, right? Tragic stuff that happens to you and how you interpret what happened, and retelling a story, but also glamorizing stories and glamorizing truth. I personally feel that way. I don't know if you feel that way, and how that kind of has effects on people. And we're living in a time now where truth isn't truth. If you pay attention to the president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, I don't know if you caught that.
That guy's an idiot.
When he said truth isn't truth.
Yeah.
That's the Trump way, right? It's the whole like, well, not really true, but I can still say it and claim that it's true. I don't know. That's my perception of portions of the film, because I personally felt like, man, you're just making shit sound dope.
See, well, that's why I didn't like this movie as much, because it felt like it didn't say anything really that profound. Like, to me, it's like making that whole switcheroo. It's just like, oh, this is a way of guess making that. Like, but how does that really affect what I watch? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like you remember how I said, like, the number one thing I hate in all movies is dream sequences, right? Mm-hmm. Like, essentially, the ending of this movie is telling me that the whole 2 hours I spent previously is a dream sequence. I don't really.
You didn't catch that halfway through the movie or something, or did you catch?
Well,
it
I just like I wanted it. I guess I read the book after I saw the movie because I was looking for more answers. Book doesn't really provide any answers either. But like, I thought it was going to be he was entering some sort of spiritual realm, or it was like a kind of it was like, something like, I thought it was
something more impactful than he was just lying, like exaggerating.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
When you said you didn't like it because of the ending, is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. I just think that having that kind of twist is kind of empty to me if there's like nothing, you know what I mean? Like, I thought it was going to be, it was a grand awakening to some self-discovery. And I think it is. I think that's what the movie's implying. But by telling me that this stuff doesn't really matter, then, like, what's the point, And then he says it in a way, it's like, oh, maybe I was talking about this, or maybe I was talking about that. I was like, okay, well, like, give me an answer.
You just want that answer, RB3?
Well, yeah, at least, like, to me, like, I love movies that have ambiguous endings, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon has a very ambiguous ending as to whether she lives or dies, or she falls or flies. Yeah. Same thing that Birdman kind of has too, in that kind of way too. But I at least I understand that's where the direction of this is going, right? And that's what the ultimate movie's about. For me, Life of Pi, at least upon watching it initially and revisiting it in the form of a book, and then I watched it one more time as a movie, I just didn't get the connection. You know what I mean? I just didn't have the visceral connection I had to it. That being said, it's a very beautiful movie, and I saw it in 3D. It was dope 3D, very good 3D.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, this won Best Director for Ang Lee.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the visual spectacle kind of overtook anything else of this movie?
No, I mean, I think the visual spectacle is what I enjoyed about it the most, personally.
Sure. But I'm saying on a Best Director scale, do you feel like when people were handing out the votes, was it like, well, did you see it? Like, visually, how can he not win Best Director?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very visual movie. I think they're always going to give the Best Director prize to the most visual movie, which I don't disagree with. I think that's
really okay.
Well, I mean, I disagree with it sometimes.
That's not necessarily directing, right? I mean, this is a director's podcast, so it kind of goes into.
Well, I think director.
What is a director's job?
I definitely think director more than something like DP, because I'm not gonna lie, I was a little confused when the movie won Best Cinematography, mainly because isn't it all shot on a green screen for the most part? You don't
think there's cinematography in that?
No, it's definitely there's a lot of brilliant cinematography in that, but like at the end of the day, like most of the visual composition occurs post-production wise, you know, and I don't know to what involvement the DP was involved in the color correction and the visual effects to the day-to-day. And, especially for me, and I don't know if you saw this, because there's a huge controversy when this movie came out about the visual effects people, right? Behind it with the Rhythm and Hughes company is the company that did the visual effects for this movie. This movie was so big, so expensive. This was an independent visual effects company, ended up going out of business, kind of because this movie was so enormous and went over budget so much. And they had a hard time keeping up with the technology because the visual effects game keeps innovating upon itself. This is a great documentary. I think the company is called Rhythm and Hughes. I think the documentary is called Rhythm and Blues because it's about them going out of business. And it's also great because there's also that moment where the movie actually did end up winning Best Visual Effects, And then I don't know if you remember watching this during the Oscar telecast, but the visual effects people went up to do their speech, and they were giving their speech, and they like actually were like literally cut off. You know, because when they went up there, they're like, "Hey, our company's going out of business. Please support the visual effects industry." Da 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 da. And the Oscars literally like played them off and like cut them off camera. Like,
to my family for all the sacrifices they made, Gabrielle, I love you so much. To my children, Christopher, Thomas, Alexander, and Samantha, thank you for inspiring me every day. To my mom and dad, thank you for telling me I could do any crazy career choice I wanted. Finally, I want to thank all the artists who worked on this film for over a year, including Rhythm and Hughes. Sadly, Rhythm and Hughes is suffering severe financial difficulties right now. I urge you all to remember.
And if that's not a lower blow to a company that's already going out of business trying to make this ginormous movie, in which they kind of talk, and I don't know how accurate the documentary is because coming from a lot of visual effects perspective, but they're talking about, hey, like, you know, Ang Lee kind of came in and was, you know, we showed him a test with, you know, with the rain. We will show him tests and he'll give indecisive. Like, we show him a test with the rain. And it was like, oh, there's not enough rain, and they take it back, add more rain. It's, oh, wait, why'd you guys put in so much rain? You know, that kind of shit. You know what I mean? So it's, you know, a lot of times that's what directors and visual effects producers have to deal with a lot on a constant basis. But this movie ultimately ended up looking very visually beautiful, but at the expense of, you know, a visual effects company with a lot of jobs on the line, at the expense of having these ginormous effects. And, you know, to what extent is the director of photography involved, and how much of the directing Ang Lee himself is doing. I think so. For me, for best director, I actually think that's not a bad goal for directors who do a lot of green screen work to win best direct. I don't think not best goal, but like, I don't think that's not a fair thing to award, because I think having directing on mostly green screen is actually the most challenging part of it too. So because you look at movies like Gravity, that also a great technical achievement, also won best director, but a lot of that shot on green screen as well. So,
but you feel like when it comes to cinematography, something that is pretty much the DP is in charge of when it comes to creating shots, essentially. Visual effects, how much is the cinematographer and how much is it the visual effects people in the visual effects company? Right. You don't feel like the cinematographer, for the most part, gets his vision on the screen?
I mean, I think he definitely, a DP definitely establishes what, you know, what the aesthetic of the visual effects are supposed to, you know, look like. He definitely establishes and influences the visual effects.
What about the VFX supervisor, which is a title that has become very popular in Hollywood, which is something that didn't really exist back in the day. Now there's like VFX supervisors who actually work with the DP when it comes to creating movies.
Right. I mean, I don't
movies like Infinity War, right, which is pretty much all CG except for like some scenes.
Right. I mean, I don't know the whole process that goes into the whole visual effects, DPs, all this kind of stuff. Like, I really don't know. I have no idea. So, like, maybe I'm speaking from an ill-informed perspective here, but I don't know. It's just interesting with a movie like Life of Pi.
It is, because for me, it has a lot to say about what you were saying. Why did it win Best Cinematography? Why did it win Best Director? For me, those are questions that should come into play, and it should be questioned when it comes to the VFX. And I didn't know about that documentary, but now I want to check it out, because you're right. That's an interesting perspective as far as like who takes the credit for, wow, it looks beautiful. Ang Lee, here you go. Here's the Oscar. And it's like the VFX people are like, what about us? We're the ones who actually made it. We actually did it. Mm-hmm. So that's a very interesting perspective, because like you said, they went out of business, whereas Ang Lee is Ang Lee. Mm-hmm. And he won the Oscar. Mm-hmm. And I'm now very curious about who is doing what. But for the most part, what I've seen on stuff, on sets and on film and on behind the scenes, is the DP working hand in hand with VFX artists to create the shot that they want. So they are very, very, very involved, to the point that they can get an Oscar for Best VFX. I mean, for Best Cinematography.
Right. No, absolutely.
Let's move on to Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk.
Yes, no, absolutely. Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk is a movie with a star-studded cast. I mean,
Vin Diesel, man.
Vin Diesel.
That's like the first name I bring up.
You know,
Vin Diesel. Though.
Vin Diesel, Chris Tucker, All these names. I don't know. Okay, so this is a very weird movie for me, Ace.
Bo Nap. I was about to say, it's because I'm really tired. I was about to say Ben Shapiro.
Oh, Ben Shapiro. Oh, no, gosh. I hope
Ben Shapiro's in this movie?
Oh, man. I'd love for him to be in this movie because I'd have some words for him. Honestly, it's not a bad movie. It's a different...
I can't stand that guy, man.
Why
Why you praising him so much, man?
Ben Shapiro?
Why you showing him so much love, RB3?
I'm not... Me showing Ben Shapiro love? Have you checked my Twitter?
I'm just messing with you, man.
I hate Ben Shapiro.
The biggest name for me is
when Ben Shapiro,
my homegirl, man, Kristen Stewart.
Yeah. Hey, she has a good part in this too.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say like Ben Shapiro's like I hate the guy, but his movie reviews aren't like half bad sometimes.
Oh, see, come on. Have you seen his movie reviews?
Yeah,
they're trash, man.
I agree with him for the most part. Last Jedi,
trash. Oh, I hate his movie reviews.
Really?
Yes. I'm
trying to think which ones. I mean, like I definitely.
For me, he's just like a big talking like, I don't want to get started.
I like his Last Jedi review.
Like, if you want to be a right wing homie, do it. Do it.
No, I hate.
But when you start talking
the
about movies, like, blah blah blah, the agenda, blah.
All right, yeah. I think that's what he takes overboard. He takes overboard with that shit. But hey, man, fuck Ben Shapiro. I hate him just on principle. So
yeah,
have his movie reviews too.
But anyway, Kristen Stewart's in
this movie. This movie is very much. I really don't know if it's pro-military, anti-military.
I was gonna say you were telling me you have an issue. Like, here's your issue?
I don't. It's a weird movie, man. I mean, like if you really look at it. So this movie, it's about this soldier who his name's Billy Lynn. He's part of this crew that did this amazing mission back during while they were at war or whatever. And it's basically a story of how they are contacted. They did this big heroic thing, so all of them have to fly out to a Dallas Cowboys game and like stand, during the halftime or whatever. Just like walk up during the halftime. It flashes back and forth between that whole day and the actual events that happened during the thing or whatever. Yeah, it's a weird movie because when they go to like the war parts are cool and interesting because Ang Lee shoots it. He shoots this movie in super high frame rate. It's super, I think it was something like 120 frames per second or 60 or whatever. So this was released high frame rate, 3D, same way The Hobbit was. I didn't see it that way, but when you watch it at home, it's very clear that was the way it was shot because the shutter speed super high. Meaning the F, with shutter speed being super high, you get to shoot in high frame rate or whatever. So it definitely influenced the aesthetic of it, even watching a home video. I don't know. I didn't like necessarily get what they were trying to say because every time they came back to the NFL parts, like it was always like, oh, they're trying to like sell like this movie script. Like like the Chris Tucker character is this dude who's like an agent who's trying to sell the script based on the story of the guys in the movie that we're watching. Like it was it was like almost like too meta to me. And then and he's pitching it to all these NFL guys like, oh, don't you want to support veterans? Like, and like, I don't know, it's weird. Like that's what that half of the movie is about. Another half of the movie is about like this like trying to readjust back into society after war and dealing with PTSD, but the PTSD always come out at like weird times, like especially, well, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. PTSD is something that affects a lot of people, so like, I don't know how it affects people, but I guess during the halftime walk itself, there's a lot of instances of PTSD that kind of triggers them, which is very understandable because there's a lot of gunfire and stuff, but there's just moments that he's at home and, and his family situation doesn't necessarily help that either because Kristen Stewart is a very opinionated anti-war voice. Who doesn't support her brother going back to fight, but her brother is a soldier and he's very disciplined in serving his country. So it's interesting dichotomy, but it leads to a lot of tension in the family that also causes those PTSD flashbacks. Sure, it's a movie. Do you feel like
you wanted it to pick a side?
I think
versus not really picking a side.
I think it picks a side. I don't think it picks like an anti-war or pro-war thing. I think it honestly approaches more of like a capitalist versus anti-capitalism thing.
Okay.
Because I think to a certain extent the Chris Tucker character and like trying to sell this script and make this movie about these guys Like, and there's this whole thing where like they want to make the movie, but they don't want to put in some kind of money for it. Like, I don't know. It was a weird kind of plot, but I think the whole thing is like, oh, like you are willing to send these boys to war, but you're not willing to like make a movie about them, or you're not willing to celebrate. You know, you're just gonna do the bare minimum and send them out for a halftime walk where they fly back in the very next day to go, to go back to fight. And it doesn't affect anybody else that concerns them too, right? So I think in that sense it's anti-war. But it's also like I said, capitalism, because it's about making money off of exploiting these guys.
But could it be anti-war and pro-military?
I mean, I don't think it's
both. Anti-war, but still support the veterans?
I think that, yeah, but like it doesn't really make an efficient argument for that either. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like,
I find it interesting the fact that this whole conversation is taking place during an NFL game, right? The irony within that.
Oh, now with the NFL,
now,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Especially this movie has like real life players like Richard Sherman in it, right? Like, and I, now that the whole idea of the NFL and taking a knee has somewhat become anti-military movement. At least that's the way the right,
not just anti-military, anti-veteran.
Well, that's how the right.
That's
the
what
right
I'm saying. That's
what
they're using.
Yeah. But even though the protest is about police brutality, and people are just blatantly ignoring that. But it's just, I don't know, man. So I don't know if this movie really had a position that I can firmly identify, and I think that it presents a lot of complex ideas without like really following up on a lot of stuff. So I think it's just a little bit of a schlocky movie, honestly. Like, this is probably like my least favorite of all the Ang Lee films I've seen.
Not even for Vin Diesel, bro.
I mean, Vin Diesel, he was good. I mean, it was he was playing the Saving Private Ryan guy again, right? But like this time he's the leader, and he croaks and gives an inspirational quote to Garrett Hedlund.
Shout out to Garrett Hedlund, man.
Yeah, hey, good for him, man. Good for him for getting a good role in this.
Isn't he in the...
He's in Tron Legacy, one of my favorite Disney
movies.
movies.
He's in the Netflix movie that won... not one, but...
Oh, Mudbound. Yeah, that's right.
He's great in that movie.
Yeah.
He's super good. I mean... If that's what you need to say, RB3, that's what you need to say. I just remember this trailer for this movie so much.
It's a good trailer.
Yeah, that trailer is crazy.
So this is what blew my mind, So they had like this whole, like Destiny Child is like performing before they go on or whatever, and like they clearly don't
like booty shaking and
but like they clearly don't show the faces, but they're like, oh my god, Beyonce just walked by, and then it's like, I don't know, it was just weird, man. It was a weird movie, like. It was just so weird. I don't know.
This is what I live for, RB3. I live for these hot takes. I live for these opinions.
Yeah.
And that's why...
You're not getting any more of that on Twitter, though.
We need to do it, man. Follow RB3 on Twitter. Follow at RB3Schmoes to see his hot takes.
Follow Ace for his hot takes, man. That's why we... I was thinking, man, what wouldn't be a bad idea? What if we would just, like, create a Facebook group? Like... And like how the Sight and Sound guys have their little thing or whatever, like we just do our own kind of like Facebook group, and then have a bunch of our fans there, and I can just get my hot takes there instead of like being fiery on Twitter. I don't know, maybe.
Interested.
What do you guys think of a Facebook group? Comment down below.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know if you would actually join that Facebook group.
Yeah.
Because who knows what the future has in store, RB3.
Ooh, you never know.
Our future. As hot take movie people.
Hot take.
Either way, don't support Ben Shapiro.
No, don't support Ben Shapiro, no.
But support Ang Lee. Go see his next movie. Hopefully he'll release it soon. So far, he has Gemini Man coming out in 2019. And Thriller in Manila is also on his IMDb page as movies that are upcoming.
I know Alfonso Cuarón, another director we talked about in the past. I heard good things coming out of his movie that he.
Oh, I'm so excited for that.
For Netflix.
Yeah, I'm excited for that movie.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for it. Hopefully, it does something.
Spanish language film too. So.
We'll see. Either way, guys, that is our episode on Ang Lee. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments down below. But we don't really care if you comment or not.
You're being real hard on Terry earlier, man. You're being real hard on Terry, man.
I was joking, Terry. I love you, man. Is it Tari or Terry? I love you, man. Either way.
I should have called you out earlier, bro.
Much love.
Yeah.
And peace to everyone who's listening.
Also, please, people, at the top of the link of this description is a link to my project from the Road Reel competition.
Yeah, get it.
So please click on that link. Give me a quick vote. It's the project itself is called Artists of Venice. I did it with my buddy Kate Hughesby from my fraternity, and we interviewed a couple of people on the Venice Boardwalk and kind of talked about what inspired them to be artists and stuff. So yeah, all of that. Just click on the link very top of the description, and please give me a vote. Help us get some votes.
And for the Meaning of Podcast, I am Ace.
This is RB3,
and we are peacing out, guys. Peace out. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning of Podcast. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of... I'm sorry. All right, here we go. We're back. Let's do it. Stop, man. Stop. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where... Stop, dude. Seriously, we're never going to... What is up, guys? Stop.
Dude.